England supporting internet trolls gritting their teeth as they have to admit that Saka and Rice played really well for England. This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Yeah, it does seem that tribalism has just ramped up even more than ever. And I think I forgot this because we didn't really have social media when Arsenal were in their dominant phase in the early 2000s. That didn't exist. Social media came around where Arsenal were the lovable, not great team. And what I mean by that is there were a lot of people that almost condescendingly appreciated the way we played because we did play some beautiful football, but we weren't really a threat in the 2010s and 2020s early on to the first Chelseas and Uniteds and then Cities and Liverpools. And so I don't think we fully felt the tribal trolling. Trouble? Yeah, see, I just invented a portmanteau there. I don't think we fully felt it, but now that we're good, now that we're title contenders, now that we're smacking down the big clubs and the big clubs are in the mud, as the kids say, I think the full trolling has come to fruition. And so I do wonder how they feel watching Saka and Rice star for England along with one Jude Bellingham who doesn't play in the Premier League. So that is convenient and easy for all troubles. So we'll talk a bit of Euros. We'll talk a bit of Saka and Rice. And then, of course, a little bit of transfer rumors. It turns out we're signing Amadou Onana and Victor Osimhen. Confirmed on both of those because someone you've never heard of before retweeted a tweet from someone you've also never heard of before. So both of those moves confirmed, and we'll talk about how they fit in. Tomorrow, Clive and I will have a patron pod on the fixtures because the fixtures come out tomorrow. We're going to dissect my prediction. And I don't do predictions. You know that because I think predicting is bad business. But I predict, once again, Arsenal will be drawn against every Premier League club home and away this upcoming season. But we'll talk about why the specific way they were picked has relevance for our season. We'll go into some of the transfer rumors, maybe talk a little Fofana, talk a little England, stuff like that. So lots of good stuff on Patreon coming up this week. We're going to try to stay Arsenal focused throughout the week on our content. But one last point here. Phil Costa is doing the Euro Daily. As you may have noticed, the Euro Daily episode with Tim and Clive is on this feed. I'll import a few to this feed throughout the tournament just to make sure that you get some good stuff here to keep you going. But if you want every single day a Euro Daily with Phil Costa and the cavalcade of stars that he's going to have joining him, experts on their various nations, just go to the ArsenalVision Podcast and hit follow or subscribe or whatever they're calling it now on whatever app you listen to. And then you can have every single Euro Daily, and that would be fun for Phil because he's putting in a hell of a lot of work. All right, here with me now is Clive. You can find him on Twitter, ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Tim, you can find him on Twitter at Stillminator. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Hello there, indeed. Tim, are you enjoying the Euros?
I mean, I've got Romania versus Ukraine on mute at the moment, if that answers your question.
You are the GIF, sickos outside the window going, oh yeah.
Well, someone actually reworked, the noticer meme. Someone reworked it as the watcher. Like people like me who watch every game at the Euros, but then like tweets to tell everyone just so they know that you're watching every game at the Euros. So that's very much me. I've watched every game. I'm going to watch every game today. Tomorrow afternoon, that might be my first kind of slip. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Like with these kind of with international tournaments, like because there's really two stages to it, right? I mean, very literally, you've got your group stage where it's like there's 3 games a day. Ordinarily, you couldn't pay me to watch Romania versus Ukraine, but just because it's in the Euros, just literally that branding, it's just like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to watch this, and I'm going to pretend I'm an expert on Romania and Ukraine, and I'm going to have very strong opinions about what their coach should and shouldn't be doing. And like for me, it's I kind of struggled with this when I was younger, like international football, international tournaments. Where do I rank it? I kind of want to care. And then I was like struggling with, but I know I don't care as much as I care about Arsenal because I'm an obsessive. And obviously as I've got older, I've learned to kind of be like, well, you don't have to be an obsessive about it. You can just, I almost view like international tournaments, particularly at the group stage phase, like a dumb action movie, where you're just like, yeah, I'll watch this. Or like The Boys or something, like a series like that, which I really enjoy. And I think it's kind of dumb but kind of fun as well. So
It's
like
just good to have on.
exactly, yeah. It's very pretty. There's some funny swearing in it, and there's some violence. That's kind of, I mean, maybe that's not a great description for an international tournament group stage, but I like having it there. I love the 3 games a day stuff, and then as soon as that becomes a bit tiring, it stops. And then you get the kind of, obviously like the second half of the tournament, the knockouts, the really big teams playing each other, often in attritional games that finish 0-0 and go to penalties after 120 minutes. But I just love everything about international tournaments. And it's, on one hand, I feel like it allows me to be a casual fan, which is not something I experience that often because I'm so invested in Arsenal. But at the same time, I think this happens more when you watch your own country. There is something about it where you kind of have to share it with a lot more people. And there's we can go into this if we talk about the England game, but sometimes that's difficult, and that public conversation is difficult as well. And you can't help but feel a bit snobby and protective and be like, I know more than you, shut up. But at the same time, you kind of have to acknowledge that I've barely watched an England game for 2 years, and now all of a sudden I'm talking like I'm an expert. So yeah, I just, international tournaments to me just like festival time, and Romania have just taken the lead against Ukraine, and the entire stadium is bright yellow because both teams play in yellow, and the sun's out and it's beautiful, and it just looks very nice on my television.
Interesting stuff. I think you also described the Stoke in the Premier League experience. There was some funny swearing and violence, and then it got boring and it was over. Yeah, there is just something about a summer international tournament. I don't get it exactly, especially for those of us on this side of the pond, because I see these people who watch every single game, and then the Copa America is coming next week, and those games are at like 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And it's like, I'm expected to watch football at 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m., and 8 p.m., and somehow maintain employment status and marital status. Like, this is the ultimate test. This is football fandom on hard mode. Like, how many excuses can you come up with over a 3.5 week period to convince everybody in your life that it's really important that you in fact watch Ukraine, Romania in the first game of the group stage? Like, it takes a lot of commitment. I have to admit, I love it though. And I am a club over country person. Club football, I'd be watching an Arsenal preseason game right now over the Euros final, but like, when it's on, it just comes at the perfect time. Transfers haven't heated up. Preseason is not going. It's exactly what you need. And Clive, I'm curious. I think one of the things that happens in these tournaments, and we'll get to the Saka and Rice thing here in a second, but you can see how a Sofian Amrabat gets a move to Manchester United, things like that, because you are exposed to players in a very emotional, very intense powder keg of football who you maybe aren't as familiar with at club level. And someone stands out. Someone makes a name for themselves. Someone has the game of their life in front of the world in a major international tournament. Like, it is an interesting time to evaluate players, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you can draw huge conclusions about them based off their 2 or 3 international games in the group stage, whereas there might be 70 games of club football you could have looked at to evaluate them that are more accurate. Like, how hard is that, do you think, to get excited about players, to put your eye on players in this form of football, but also to acknowledge that this is a unique form of football and maybe doesn't sum up who these players are? You don't want to draw too many conclusions.
No, it's just about discovery, really. Discovering talents, new players that you might not have heard of, and you think, oh, they look quite good. I wonder how they're looking in our team. Then you look at their record; they had 4 starts in the last 6 months. You think, I bet not get too excited about them. You know what I mean? And but it is nice to see players in a different environment, and see how they behave in that different environment. I'm watching Dragusin right now playing for Romania, and I'm thinking, and he got introduced to us via Spurs, etc. And I can think, well, let's have a look at him in a different environment, see what role he plays, what seniority he plays. Yesterday we saw, I think it was yesterday, sorry, Kiwior played for Poland in a back three on the outside of a left centre back, and to see his ability and sort of assurance in that role, and really getting forward and switching play, the type of things we saw on the scouting video, Elliot, the sort of things we saw there, we haven't really seen much of them at Arsenal, but to see him in a different role, you think, hold on, that player's still in there. And I quite like that. I like the discovery angle to remind me of how players are in different roles. And so, yeah, that's the challenge, really. But of course, sometimes I think, me and Tim said this yesterday, sometimes I think what we do as watching fans is we import our Premier League analysis into the international arena. And for me, they're just different sports, So I'm not going to do that because we did that all the time, didn't we? As a group of mates, we do it all the time. So now I want to look at it slightly differently. I want to have a bit of fun with it. But when you go on Twitter, have a bit of fun with it, people hold you to the same standard as you as the rest of the year, and you end up in discourse that maybe you don't want to end up in, and people take you maybe too seriously. So that's the challenge, Elliot.
Yeah, I'll stay with you for a second then, Clive, as we sort of shift to something slightly more Arsenal focused, which is the England game. England beat Serbia 1-0 in a game that started out, I think, really as an expression of the quality and dominance that I expected England to have in this group, and then ended as an expression of what I regard as the problem with Gareth Southgate being the limiter on this talent, which is an England team with 11 men behind the ball and Harry Kane trying to dribble past three guys as the only outlet they had. I do regard Serbia as maybe better than people think. So I think that was a tougher matchup and that people may expect, and maybe the toughest matchup in the group. But setting that aside, Arsenal's star players, Saka and Rice, starring for England, I thought they were excellent. In an England team that I think is still trying to figure out how to fit the puzzle pieces together. But I'm curious what you made of their performances, and Saka in particular. I just think he was the star man for England aside from Jude Bellingham, and coming back from injury, maybe couldn't last the whole game, so faded a bit. What do you make of Arsenal's star boys in the England side and the England performance overall?
Yeah, that point about fading, it happened to all of them, mate, to be honest. And they've all had a tough season. They've had some downtime, and they came into this game and they looked not quite at their cooked best, a little bit undercooked, right? So, but when they were hot, they were pretty good. And then you can watch people fade and just doing stupid things, not getting around the ball, kicking the ball out of play, looked a bit clunky on occasions, getting ahead of the ball too soon. But there was a couple of players, and I'm afraid it was the Arsenal players early on, where they looked like how we see them every week. And I rewatched the first half this morning, and if you were watching that game without the tension and the bombasticness of Bellingham, I think you would say that Rice was probably what our best player. Honestly, mate, well, watch it again. He was outstanding. He was everywhere. He was everywhere we need to be. He
was having to do the job of three midfielders, Clive, because he was the only person playing midfield.
Well, on that point, Elliot, we can have a good midfield discussion. Jude was unbelievable, but he was everywhere. So the first issue is coexistence with him. How do you coexist with somebody like that, who literally turned up and said, "This is my show. I'm the lead actor, and you lot just carry my bags for you for a bit. I'm dropping deep outside the block when I feel like it. I'm going higher than Kane when I feel like it. I'm going to turn the centre picture as a post-up centre forward and turn away and keep it. And I'm going to arrive in the box like Brian Robson. Me and Tim mentioned yesterday. I arrive in the box like Brian Robson and smash it into the net." I mean, then you think about his partners. So Rice said, "You know what? I know what my job is. I'm going to stand right here and clean up and mop up and keep circulating the ball." And Trent had to try to find a spot in between them. If anything, I felt England played the roles wrong, Elliot. I think Trent spent too much time ahead of the ball. So I said a tweet out before the game that, look at Tony Cruz, how he dropped into the back line, Shaka-like. Trent needed to drop into the back line to right back slot and be the first phase of our build-up. And I know you obviously, I was thinking about quarterbacks, and I was thinking about, you sent him out there, you stuck him in the middle of the tulips, and actually you want him behind the ball with exits. And if you think about England, they've lost two major exits: Harry Maguire of set pieces and Marcus Rashford in open play. And so the best exit was our boy, Saka, who did his normal stuff, shake and bake, spin, come short, spin, get in behind, step over, get in behind. Standard stuff, 45 minutes, go inside and loosen your shin pads. Standard stuff for him. He's just very, very clever. And but if you want to get the best out of Trent, I'm not sure we quite have the team for him. And I'm not sure We're trying to make him play like Jordan Henderson, up and down that right-hand channel. No. Look at his heat maps, Elliot, mate. That's not what we want. If you got a quarterback, you want him standing still, receiving the ball, facing the play, and then you go from there. And I think we need to tweak his role slightly because the talent is there for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about this a little bit because, Tim, I think the international game shows you why tactics can really determine player selection and how to deploy the talent that you have in a team. I mean, we've seen it at Arsenal. Is Rice R6 or is he R8? Is Kai R8 or is he R9? Who plays next to Rice? Rice wants to be slightly in the left half space. So you want to give him a player like a Jorginho who's a little more comfortable in the right. And, if you ask me what England are missing, Rice can cover so much ground, progress the ball with carries. He's a big space player. You've got someone in Jude Bellingham who wants to be more of a true 10 the way he's playing. Go in between the lines, set people up, but arrive in the box to score goals. Where's the Jorginho? Where's the guy who was comfortable playing 120 passes at 95%? And this is where I think Trent is misunderstood. Trent Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool completes 75% of his passes. Trent can play the final ball. He's unique in the world. He can play the final ball from inside his own half. Trent can play the final ball from the touchline, from the midway line, from his own touchline. Byline. Trent has the final ball from anywhere on the pitch, but his angles are very specific. He's used to playing that delivery from the right half space, right touchline. He knows how to hit that ball from that space. He knows I've got the right touchline to my right. Guarding me, I only have to be aware of what's on my left. When you step into midfield, suddenly the game is happening on both sides of you, and you're asked not to hit 30-yard final balls, not to complete 75% of your passes. You're asked to drop in and complete 3-yard passes at 96%. And that's what's missing for England in my mind. And the interesting thing is I think Arsenal have the same conundrum because we've got Rice and we've got Odegaard. Do we want a Jude Bellingham? Right? That's what Kai was kind of meant to be, I think. Late arriver, get in the box, score the goals, doesn't have to have 100 touches, but has to be, invading the box and causing devastation. Or do we want a Jorginho? 120 passes a game so Rice can go all over the pitch, so Odegaard can get more advanced. I see the Arsenal dilemma in building a midfield similar to the England dilemma. And I'm wondering if you think that there's a bit of an analogous situation developing there because Rice was brilliant. Jude was brilliant doing Jude stuff, but because there wasn't a controlling midfielder alongside Rice, once Serbia switched up a little bit, England couldn't get on the ball and they lost control of the game. So do you see that as a little bit of the issue there? How do they want to play and who's the right midfield profile to partner Declan Rice? Because Arsenal arguably have the same question.
Yeah, definitely. Like I don't look at what Rice was doing for Arsenal as an 8. I look at it very much as it's a box midfield and there's a right 6 and a left 6 and he's the left 6. But when we attack, it becomes a diamond and he fans out to the left a little bit. I think England probably want to do something pretty similar, but to your point, they don't have that Partey Jorginho. Forgive me if you listened on the Football Vision feed last night, because I'm going to repeat slightly what I said there. But essentially, England have just got a really short-term bridge here where they do have those players in Wharton and Mainu, and they've got 2 brilliant young prospects there. And by the next World Cup, I think they'll both be ready, but they're just not quite there yet. And so England are in a transition phase where Rice and Phillips was a really, really good balance for England for quite a while, just as Rice and Henderson was. But Rice and Phillips was a really good, but you can't play Phillips anymore because he's gone. He's ruined his career by going to City, and that's it. Like, that's it for him now. His international career, I think, is over. And so England are just in that transition period, and I think it's all coming down the line. Like Trippier and Walker are getting on. Like the right back space will open up for Trent, I think, and Wharton Mainu. But just at the moment, it's international tournaments. I don't think you can play kids in those roles. And when you look around, Germany had this problem as well. If you look at Germany's results before Tony Kroos came out of retirement to what they've been after he came out, there's a bit of a difference, and I think they might be related somehow. And France are like the other way around. France have got all these really good controlling but quite young midfielder. I mean, Rabiot's not young, but like Rabiot, Tchouameni, Camavinga. But what they didn't have was like a Rice, so they've brought Kante back. Like they've really brought Kante back from the wilderness because they want their Rice, as it were. And what England don't have is a Toni Kroos. Most nations don't have a Toni Kroos, don't get me wrong, but that definitely is the issue. Personally, from both an England and an Arsenal aspect, I like the idea of Rice as the left six fanning out into like a left eight when it becomes a diamond. But I think the additional consideration for England is they have been weakened defensively by injuries. So Shaw's not there, and who knows what shape he's going to be in when he comes back anyway. Maguire's not there. You've got Gahey and Stones, who haven't played a lot of football together, and neither of whom I think is like a leader at the back. I think both of those players like need a Maguire next to them. So England, I think, are weak defensively. So I think they kind of need Rice deeper, and that was massive for England yesterday. He made a couple of interceptions on the edge of the box that were absolutely crucial, and he was kind of not quite playing third centre back, but that's where England needs stability the most, because all right, they don't really have a ball-playing midfielder. Trent may or may not be the answer, but at least up the pitch, they've got Foden, Bellingham, Saka, Kane. What a front four that is. Like, that's Man City, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid in your front four, right? And like some of the main players from those clubs. That is a world-class front four. So I think if you're England, you kind of go, do you know what? We might not have the connective tissue that we need, but we trust those guys to get things done. And actually where we need security is defensively. So at the moment, Declan Rice, I think, does need to sit a little bit deeper. Once Wharton and Mainu are ready, I think you'll see him play a bit more of a role like he does for Arsenal.
Interesting. Yeah, I think when you look around at the absolute best teams in world football at the club level, there's a central midfielder that can do the job of two players, and it enables these really uniquely talented attacking midfielders to have a little freedom and flexibility. Look, the most obvious example of this is Sergio Busquets in those legendary Barcelona teams, because Messi wasn't going to do anything until he did everything, right? And Busquets enabled that. And if you look at Real Madrid right now and Jude Bellingham basically doing whatever role that is, Camavinga is extraordinary. Two players in one. Chelsea and Leicester won titles because Conte could do two players in one. Manchester City, what they have in Rodri probably isn't properly appreciated. Rodri can be Jorginho on the ball, and he can be Declan Rice off the ball. He's that good. It pains me to say it because I can't stand him. And Declan Rice is sort of that version of our player. I think we're still looking for the alchemy there. And England clearly are looking for the alchemy there. And I understand wanting a pass master in Trent Alexander-Arnold, but you misunderstand the kind of pass master he is. He's a final ball guy from all over the pitch. He's not a 120 pass guy. He doesn't know where to stand off the ball in the middle of the park, because that's a hard thing to learn overnight when the touchline's always been your friend on your right shoulder. I think if you have one of the generational talents in world, if you have Dani Alves, you don't make him a midfielder. If you have Trent Alexander-Arnold, you don't make him a midfielder. You play him at right back because he's one of the unique talents in world football at that position. And maybe you play a Gallagher. And he runs around and he covers some space. So if Trent's isolated, Gallagher can get back and cover for him, or Rice can. I don't know what the solution is there, but for Arsenal, I think what you see is Bukayo Saka is ascending to this position now where everybody in the world just recognizes he is among the best forwards in the game. And you saw Foden struggle so much in this game because without an overlapping fullback, without a collapse the box center forward, Foden doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know where to be. He doesn't know how to impact the game. Bukayo Saka just cannot be stopped. He is an outlet. He is a man who can beat other men. He is a man who brings other people into the game, and he does his work at both ends of the pitch. And I think, Clive, this is where you can evaluate players. You look at a player in Foden where the system didn't support him the way he needs it, and you look at a Saka and you say, it doesn't matter what the system is because he's always going to star. And I think this was sort of an interesting statement of Saka's unique level. Because for Arsenal, he's the inside winger a little bit. He's not hugging the touchline. For England, he's hugging the touchline a bit more. Doesn't matter. Wherever you put him, he's going to shine.
Yeah, he's very clever, right? So what he does very cleverly is he understands the role that's required and he accepts it and he performs it. He doesn't become undisciplined and decide, I will have some touches inside. Let me come off my wing. No. I'm holding it here because the team needs me as an outlet. And the average position tells you exactly he was our furthest player forward and he was our widest player in the whole game. And so he was always that fixed point of our attack, much like Martinelli is sometimes on our average position map. He's the one that's highest, but we sometimes flips to Saka. So I thought he was outstanding at recognizing his role. I think roles are really important and accepting your role. Harry Kane, right? Normally I'd be slaughtering him for his one touch first half and wherever it was. But I think he accepted his role. And when the game came to him, he grew into it and was unlucky not to score. Now normally I'd be all over him. But I thought he worked it out. No, I can't come and get involved. I need to stay here because this is what the team needs me to do. If that means I barely touch it and I just shuffle from side to side with centre halves, I'm accepting that. So if Foden was given the ability to move and get on the ball, then mate, you better get on the ball. You better really get on it and stop knocking it off and turn around. And if you are looking around this team and this team is struggling to get out, then get yourself high and get yourself in behind people and take them for a run. Just do it once and they'll respect you. I don't think he accepted the game that was on offer for him. I don't think he accepted his role in the game. I thought Trent's positioning, and I do think this is a coaching thing. Trent's positioning was too high too early. That means he's facing his own goal, receiving the ball. That's not what you want. So he has to be cuter in the first phase of build-up. Either he ignores the first phase, it goes around him, then he drops off, receives it second phase, and then he can switch the point of the attack. But what I kept feeling in this game is we lacked exits. We lacked outballs. Kane was coming to it. And I'll be honest with you, I miss Rashford desperately, not because he's playing well, but I miss somebody who just would sprint off and take the game back. And back to my quarterback scenario, you don't have a top quarterback and then take away a Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean, Elliot? Take him away, take away that guy. You don't do that, right? He wants his targets. Who are his targets? Who are Trent's targets at Liverpool? He's got Nunez running away, showing his shorts. He's got Diaz showing his shorts. He's got Salah always holding his position. He's got Gakpo holding his position. He has targets. And I've watched the first half. I swear to you, mate, you'll see it when you get into, if you want to get into the detail. He's looking to go and he's nothing to go. So he knocks it and then he runs off into an area where he can't be a good player. Do you see what I mean? That's not him. So we have to decide the role and then play the role. So rather than a 1+2, 1+2, it looks like that average position, but we watched the game and you told me where Jude Bellingham was playing. And I just feel we need to go a 2+1, if that makes sense. Really have a 2, a base 2, and get some patterns off left-hand side. So, for example, ball goes into Trippier. Remember when Victor Moses used to turn it around the corner as a wing-back for Conte's Chelsea? That turn it around the corner, first pass. Trippier can do that with his right foot, round the corner, Foden spinning behind. And this is the difference between international football and club football. They haven't developed these patterns yet. So what do? We look at the individuals, how many passes they give away, how many times they lose it, how many times they get tackled, how many tackles they make, how many shots and crosses. We look at individual outcomes and output, when really we struggled with our pattern. When we struggle with our pattern, you know what we then do? Well, who's not playing where they should be? There's 2 players not playing where they normally do. Foden and Trent, and we go there. So that the debrief, the coaching debrief in this game needs to be about them two getting on the ball in the type of game they want to embrace their strengths. That's what everything's got to be about. One last thing, Elliot, if you listen to the interviews of Rice and Bellingham, they were so high in praise for Trent's performance. I thought that's a little bit too high in praise for what I saw, if I'm honest with you. But what it means is they recognized the balance of what they were trying to do. They recognized what he did, maybe what he sacrificed. And it seemed as though they've worked as a 3 for quite a while, for maybe up to a year to get to this moment. So I think if they can be patient, I think I can. And I hope Southgate picks a similar team. Although I do like Joe Gomez left back, but it doesn't really matter. Picks a similar team and then see it again. Let's see what happens and see if we can develop a better pattern, a bit more fluency.
It is interesting. Once upon a time, there was the Gerrard and Lampard debate. They can't play together. There was a lot of talent, but it didn't fit together. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a similar situation now with Trent, who's, I think, the best right back in world football, but for me, not a midfielder. Foden, who needs a box, just like he needs a run the deepest center forward, a gravity center forward, someone who pulls defenders away. He needs an overlapping fullback. He has neither of those there. I think the pieces don't fit. Maybe it's time for Anthony Gordon to go run the touchline, have an exit. I mean, the part that really would have dismayed me if I'm an England fan is the last 10 minutes of that game when there's 11 men behind the ball. And sometimes you have to do that in international football. Fine. You wouldn't like to do it against Serbia, but fine. But the exit was playing it to Kane's feet and having him try to beat 3 men on the dribble and the sprint. That can't be it. That can't be it if you're England, not against Serbia anyway. I mean, like, if you're killing the last 5 minutes against France with a 1-0 lead, I could forgive it. But there was no exit. So yeah, Clive?
Oh, honestly, Elliot, you took them. That is the main takeaway. So if I'm watching this game, I'm thinking, okay, we are fine for an hour. We were fine, a little bit leggy towards the 60th minute. But when we need to change to our plan B, I thought the Bowen substitution was good. It was the right substitution. We can have a good discussion about the rest. And Tim said something yesterday, and I totally agreed with him. The women's manager, Serena Wiegman, she had scripted substitutes. And I found myself thinking, we have to say to ourselves, I don't care what your name is, mate. Anthony Gordon, you're going to end this game on the left-hand side. That's what we do. Do you see what I mean? Harry Kane, if you can't stretch this team, then I'm sorry, Ollie Watkins is coming on. Give your armband to somebody else. Do you see what I mean? And we have to do this because the game required it. And we have people sitting there in their flip-flops, knowing this game suits them, and they can't get on the pitch because we won't take certain people off. So I think that's the issue, Elliot. You've nailed it. That is the issue. We have to be able to switch up the game when we drop away, say, now we're going to play like Man United on the counter. Bang. There you go. We're in behind you.
Yeah, can you imagine if you're on a 1-0 lead and it's the last 10 minutes? These may not be the names you like, but can you imagine if the keeper's going long to Ivan Toney, who's playing Anthony Gordon in behind? All right, that you could do something with that. You know, it may not be the names you favor, but it may be what's called for in the situation. Use your squad. You know, use your squad. Where is England strong? That cluster of players up front. There's so many different profiles and so many different talented players. Use your squad. And I just think, look, it was the lowest expected goals of the tournament so far combined for that game. And I just think Southgate's inherent conservatism and inherent unwillingness to move away from the names that he trusts is something that he's going to have to solve if he wants England to win a tournament that I think they should be among the favorites to win. So we'll see what happens. Let's be fair to England. They're probably through. I mean, literally probably through, because Denmark and Slovenia drew. England, the only team on 3 points. If they win either against Denmark or Slovenia, they're probably through at top of the group. So, like, I think that'll do it for that. But Tim, just before we move off this, I think we're in a stage now where you watch Bukayo Saka and you cannot deny his brilliance. You cannot deny Bukayo Saka's brilliance. Whether you're a hater or whatever you are, you're a Foden this or you're a Cole Palmer that. You watch Bukayo Saka. I mean, when you got players begging to come off the pitch because they say their ankle hurts, you got something going on. I think that the international stage can sometimes overstate the quality of players, and you want to be careful. But sometimes you need this, right? A player for his nation who 2 years running has been named the player of the year for his nation in a big tournament, stepping out on the pitch. I mean, I know Jude Bellingham is coming away as the star of the game, but I think, and he was like, and he's 20. It's just, I don't even know how to describe what Jude Bellingham is doing. His physique, his presence, his presence in front of cameras, his presence on the pitch. It's remarkable. But Saka was the exit. He was the workhorse. He was the defender. He was beating a man. They couldn't live with him. They had to drag a second defender over, which is how you wind up with Jude Bellingham being in space. Like, I don't think you can deny Saka's brilliance. And I think it's a beautiful moment, potentially, what could happen in this tournament for the world to, I think, have to kind of finally lay down this weird tribal nonsense about Saka and just confirm his brilliance as we've all seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Arsenal fans know how good he is. the fact that England fans have voted for him Player of the Year, and that's not a completely open public vote. That's for England supporters. So people who go to all the England games, they keep voting for him, England Player of the Year. But obviously with international football, as we say, particularly tournaments, draws in a large casual audience. And sometimes you need an international tournament to really sort out how good someone actually is. And with Bellingham, that's much easier because he's not tied to a Premier League club and never has been. So there isn't that level of tribalism around him. But I really remember this happening 20 years ago with Ashley Cole as well. I remember being at uni. First couple of years I was at uni, everyone was like, yeah, he's good going forward, but he can't defend. And I was like, no. That was true like 5 years ago. That is no longer true. And then I remember Euro 2004 and the whole country's watching and he's marking Ronaldo and he pockets him. And I remember coming back to uni after that and talking to, people at uni who I know really know the game and all of that. First thing I said to one of my mates, I was like, do you still think Ashley Cole can't defend? And he just went, nope, I was completely wrong about that. And that's that. You sometimes it's difficult when one of your star players plays for your country because all of a sudden you have to share them with lots of people who are either, lots of people maybe casual, lots of people who possibly hate Arsenal and all of that. And we do this and we're doing it to Foden right now. Make no mistake, this is happening to Phil Foden. There's a little bit more ill feeling towards Manchester City at the moment. I'm not saying he's playing well. I do think there's some complications around the job he's being asked to do, but I think we as Arsenal fans have set up this weird thing where we don't think Saka gets enough credit, and we think a way into that is to slag off Foden, is to set up, this happens a lot, like fans set up these kind of false top trumps type battles, and we've gone into a spot, and the whole country is kind of doing it as well, but I really think Arsenal fans are doing it where it's like, you don't rate Saka enough, so I'm gonna slag off Foden because that's what I think will get my point across about Saka. But so it can be difficult to share your players sometimes, but it's really nice when they go supernova. And seen it with Dave Seaman as well. He was a goalkeeper, I think, who people didn't realise how good he was until Euro 96 and, saves a few penalties and then he's the nation's darling. It's really nice when that happens to your players as well because it can be difficult. I loved the 2018 World Cup for England because it was their first good tournament in well over a decade anyway, but it was only Danny Welbeck who was the only Arsenal player in that squad. I actually enjoyed it more. I actually enjoyed being able to watch England and not worry about one of my boys getting either misunderstood or slagged off. I didn't have to feel defensive, but I don't feel like that at the moment because with Saka, I think, people know he's good. I don't think people know how good he is because there's a subtlety to his game and his biggest attribute is his brain. And that can be difficult to appreciate, I think, unless you watch every week. But I think people are getting it. And I think Rice is a much easier player to appreciate. And he's been there a few years. And I've got no, compunctions about people misunderstanding Declan Rice. I don't think they do. But yeah, this to me, I think this feels like a nice tournament where Saka can really cement himself along with Bellingham and that people really start to appreciate how good he is because I think he deserves that. I really do.
Yeah, well said. I want to shift gears to a couple other Arsenal players at the tournament, a couple other players at the tournament, and some transfer rumors. It is just incredible, though, right? What Saka's doing at 22. And then Bellingham's like, hold my beer. I'll do it at 20. And then Lamine Yamal is like, hold my milk. I'll do it at 16. There is such an insane number of really exciting, very young players coming through. I think the game is in very good position in terms of its young attacking talent. That's for sure. So let's do this. Let's talk about, it says here, and I apologize in advance, Smooth Sack Summer, because apparently it is officially upon us. It says, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. Whether you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. I think sometimes they write this stuff just to see if people will read it, and I've read it. So there you go. Join the 10 million folks worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use promo code ArsenalVision. Summertime and the trimming is summertime and the trimming's easy. It says here. So, whatever you're trimming for, maybe you want to get out and be smooth for the Pride Parade. For those of you celebrating Pride Month, certainly hope you're having a wonderful Pride. These are the tools that get it done, right? So you got the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. It has everything you need. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, which now has the next-gen skin-safe blade heads, including a foil blade to go completely smooth. It is funny, right? In a way, this is all silly, but it's not silly because these are tools that do a thing you do anyway, but do it better than the tool you've been using. So if there is currently a razor sitting in your shower and you're like, I don't know how long that's been sitting there, or some device that was supposed to be your trimmer, but the battery's been dead for 7 years and you don't even know where the plug is, like, just get this. Long battery life, wet, dry, works in the shower, so you can use it there. It does the trick the right way, reducing nicks and cuts and all of that stuff that you don't want in that area. You also have the LED spotlight, so you can see the contrast on multiple skin tones, length settings, all kinds of good stuff. Beach, lake, or shower, this razor will devour even the strongest. Well, you get the idea. You also, with this stuff, you get the lotion and the deodorant and the shed travel bag and the boxers. I use them for working out, which is awesome. There's the silicone scrubber and body wash, so you can get rid of that nasty thing you use to wash your body and get this. Got everything. Okay, so get 20% off and free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off free shipping with code manscaped.com. ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. It's smooth sack summer. Get on board or get left behind. Clive, is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay, Clive, let's talk some other players. We can talk Arsenal players. Kai Havertz obviously got off to, I think, a good start. He got a penalty, but I think he just played really well for Germany, and Germany demolished Scotland, looking like they are going to be certainly a force to be reckoned with. How do you feel about Kai looking like a great number 9 for Germany, but then Füllkrug comes in and scores a beautiful goal off the volley, or half volley, I guess it was. But yeah, what do you think? I thought Kai looked really good.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I think, again, he's now accepted his role facing the game and being a facilitator for a couple of number 10s who are not too bad in Florian Wirtz and Musiala. And so you think, I know what I've got to do here. I've got to connect. I've got to provide a target. I've got to set the play. I've got to be inventive in my creativity around these guys. And I've got to move. So when they get the ball with their head up with good time, I've either got to come to it, link, or I've got to flick into the corners and stretch them out. And intelligence of movement, the guy's got it in spades, right? We know this. We can't stop finding him as Arsenal people. So he was fantastic. And again, it's something Arsenal have got to get to. When it gets to 75 minutes, let's not run these guys out. Let's power up. And that's what Germany did. They brought on Füllkrug, and he just got these Scottish defenders looking at him thinking, oh my goodness. And he just smashed the ball into their net. So I thought he was very, very good, Elliot. And Germany looked very good, but Scotland was so poor in their collective distances and how they recovered and their lines of defence, etc. So, but there was a little clip before the game of him doing some shooting in training, and he done this little back flick shot, and he's doing this flying in the volley sort of shot, and you could just see that he can see the ball. The ball is massive to him, and if you think back to where he was in some parts of September this year, when he waved his foot at a chance against Man United in the box and he missed it, confidence means a lot, doesn't it? You know, it really does help a player. So the talent's there, and it's now coming out in spades.
Yeah, well said, Tim. I don't think we need to go too much further on Kai, but anyone else from the Arsenal diaspora here, Arsenal squad, that standing out to you in this tournament or worth a mention? Zinchenko's playing currently and losing currently. I haven't been able to watch that game, so I certainly can't speak to that. Kivior, I thought, looked pretty good as a center back, something that we haven't seen him really do much. I mean, I think he came on as a center back against Liverpool the season before last, but other than that, I'm not sure we've seen him at center back much for us. We will be seeing, I think, maybe William Saliba for France when they kick off. Gabriel, maybe we'll get some minutes for Brazil. In fact, Martinelli played for Brazil in their 1-1 draw against the USA, and it has Ronaldinho saying he will never watch the Brazil team ever again, and they make him go, bleh, and he doesn't like them. And he is entitled to his opinion. He is also on record. What was that?
Did you catch the Brazil USA game? Did you catch it?
I did.
How did Martinelli do? How do you think he did?
I think he did fine. Yeah, I think he did fine. I mean, it's kind of like these tune-up games. You don't really know what to make of them. I think this one meant a lot more to the USA than to Brazil, right? The US had lost every single game except one they'd ever played against Brazil. It's on home soil. I think there's a real effort to show something because the USA had been humiliated 5-1 against Colombia the game before. So there was more on the line. I think Christian Pulisic looked really, really good. And I love that he's not at Chelsea anymore so that I can actually celebrate him. Musa looked good. Way like there's good players in that USA team. It's not a pushover team anymore. And I think Brazil played it like you play a tune-up game for a tournament, similar to how England played the Iceland game, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's going to panic over that. So I thought Martinelli looked good. I think he plays a lot more centrally for Brazil. He finds a lot more central spaces for Brazil. And that's something that I think we want to try to do. So it'd be interesting to see how they use him. But, it didn't impress Ronaldinho. So I feel bad for him.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, that Ronaldinho thing, as anything that Ronaldinho ever says publicly is paid for by someone. That was actually
right?
An ad for a watch company. Yeah. It was a really obvious setup. Like the next day, it was like some crappy tagline from a watch company because Ronaldinho's funds have been very badly mismanaged, and he will do and say anything for money, basically, including endorsing far right presidential candidates as well. So essentially, ignore anything Ronaldinho says publicly. He's not. Like, he's never been a guy who really gives. He's not an opinion haver in public. I'm not sure he is privately. Can
I choose not to ignore when he said Martinelli was one of the most exciting talents he'd seen coming through? Can I choose?
Yeah,
not to
indeed. But what you were saying about Martinelli there, that's just a slight difference with Brazil because they play Vinicius Junior. So obviously, most of what they do is around getting him into the game, and that's Martinelli's position as well, which means he's probably not going to get into the team. Sorry, mate, Vinicius Junior's there. Unlucky, but at the same time, when he does, they kind of want him to play like Vinny Junior, so that probably does suit him more. I think in terms of the Euros, anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing Trossard for Belgium. I think there are parallels with Havertz there, where Germany, they were playing Füllkrug, so they were doing all right up front, but Havertz turning into a good striker has been very convenient for Germany. Germany, I think they're going to win the tournament. I think a lot of their issues have been magically and fortuitously solved. With Havertz turning out to be a good striker, they had a left back problem which has been solved out of nowhere, and Kroos coming back. And I think the fact they can bring Füllkrug and Sane on, I think that they've got real game changers from the bench. But I'm really interested to see Trossard because Belgium are in a bit of transition at the moment between their kind of golden generation and a new generation. But Trossard's never really been talked about as part of that golden generation, but he's probably the form player for Belgium at the moment. Coming into this, there's always focus on Lukaku, but Trossard's the one banging the goals in at the moment. So I'm really interested to see what he does. And he's one of those players coming into an international tournament, much like Havertz. Really, it was the second half of the season when Trossard came alive. He hasn't had like a whole brilliant season. He's had a great second half of a season, and that can tee you up nicely for a tournament. And Saliba as well. I know that's been a big talking point in France. They've had Konate and Upamecano as their two for a while. Those two had played together at club level, so there was some indication that Deschamps just liked those two as a pair. But you look at France, they're actually not hugely secure defensively, even in the World Cup. They conceded in every game except the semi-final. And so, and I think also because they're playing Austria, who are one of the few international teams who press, because they have this real Red Bull system, I think it makes a lot of sense to throw Saliba into that. Like, if you got guys pressing you, how do you not select Saliba anyway? But if you're playing like the only hard pressing team in international football, play Saliba because he'll be able to play through that. So really interested to see how it works for him. And he's another one, a bit like Saka. Like, I know there are going to be a lot of eyes on Saliba tonight if he starts, because that's a decision that's taken Deschamps a long time to come to, but it's like the talking point for France, for the French public. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on him, and I don't worry about him at all in that at all. I just think it will be like, I could be jinxing the guy here, but I suspect he'll just play really well. And, millions of French people will go, why did this take so long?
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. It would certainly make sense if they did it. I'll level with you. I think people overlook Belgium at their peril. This idea that their golden generation is gone has led to people overlooking how much talent's there. I mean, first of all, they could put a midfield out of Amadou Onana, Tielemans, and De Bruyne. Their front line includes options like not just Trossard, but Jeremy Doku, of course Lukaku, but what about Openda, who had a brilliant season next to Benjamin Sesko, as we know, Bakayoko. Like they have talent, and I'll be curious to see how far they go because like that team is interesting. And to your point, I think Trossard is set up to do really, really well in a team that has a very interesting mix of talent. So excited to watch him. Excited, of course, to watch Saliba. It is interesting because two of the stars of this Arsenal team, Ben White and Martin Odegaard, not going to be at the tournament at all. So, they get to rest, which frankly, that's a good thing. Gabriel and Martinelli off with Belgium, with Brazil, but who knows whether they'll play much themselves. We'll see about that. Clive, quickly around the tournament, though, there are a few players that caught my eye. One of them, Musiala. What a player. Would certainly take him at Arsenal. Lamine Yamal obviously jumps out at you as a 16-year-old. Are there some players that really excited you, that really brought you joy as you watched them, and you had dreams of what would the bid cost? What would it take to bring him to the carpet?
Yeah, Musiala's the one. And by the way, he's not new. I remember him as Chelsea as a youth player. I can remember him watching the youth games like I used to. And I thought he's a bit dribbly, he's okay. And then I remember England fighting for him to be in the England team, and I'm thinking, well, he's all right. He's not that good. He's just all right. And then of course he goes to Bayern Munich, and then he turns into this player. And I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again because I think it's really worth reading. There's a great article in The Athletic from Jack Pitbrook which details how England brought Bellingham in, but that included Musiala in that group as well, into the England fold from their under 13s, under 14s days. And so what you're seeing today is no accident. So this talent is nurtured, it's brought in, it's exposed to different experiences, different cup competitions, playing together abroad and developing relationships. And I think it's great when you see players come through the youth ranks, get sort of fast-tracked but favoured, but then produce this level. And to see there's a picture of Musiala and Bellingham together, you see that picture, you think, crikey, somebody knows what they're doing. And it's not an accident, this. And so, again, much like Bellingham, he embraced his role. He embraced the authority of the game. He embraced it, took over. He's just 21 years of age, mate. I mean, what? I don't want to tell you what I was doing at 21, and it weren't that. And it's just incredible. It's incredible. But is a bit newer to me, but he's interesting, isn't he? And Real Madrid are prepared to spend up to 150 on him. So, again, I'm learning about him. We all know he's had a great season. He had a knee injury and he's come back into his form now. Had a good season at Bayer Leverkusen. But that's a big, big number. And they're prepared to do it when Xabi Alonso eventually becomes a Real Madrid manager. So, one to watch there. I am enjoying watching these players flower. Saliba, just one last thing. Saliba, my little worry for him, the only worry I have is France tend to play him off the left centre-back. And he hasn't quite got himself into the right centre-back yet. The day they give him the keys to the team and build up in the three like we do, and he's in the centre of the pitch, then it's over for everybody. At the moment, he has to just wait his time, work it out on the left, maybe make a few mistakes. He got run off by Havertz in a friendly last year in that left channel while he was turning around. On the right side, we all know he has no P on his right leg, right? So again, watching these players develop. There's a young Dutch player called Reinders I liked to watch yesterday, centre mid. When looking at centre mid partners, I think he's at Milan. I'm on the YouTubes with him. I thought he was very nice, very slick, very smooth. But Elliot,
not a great Xavi Simons performance, I thought. But again, or Simons or whatever we're calling him. But again, you don't want to read too much into into the first game of an international tournament.
No, it's tough, right? But I remember we watched him. He played against us for PSV last year, and I thought he looked really sharp when you see him at the Emirates.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people that really rate him, friends of ours that really rate him. And I'm not there yet with him. I think I like other players, but I thought he got swallowed up by the game. But so did Foden, right? And he's a player of the season. So it happens. You have to brush yourself down and go again.
Yeah. Tim, anyone for you want to call out real quick before we finish on transfers? Anyone around the tournament that has excited you and captured the imagination, where you go bring them to the Emirates at once, Edu, get off your barbecue, get moving?
No, not really. No, I think other than like the absolute like young superstars we're seeing, I do think international tournaments are more of an experienced players kind of game. So like I'm looking again, Tony Kroos, I keep mentioning Kante. For Austria, Sabitzer, there's a lot more on Marcel Sabitzer because of
Eriksen,
the injuries Austria have.
Eriksen for Denmark looked good, didn't he?
Eriksen for Denmark, playing as a 10. Like I do feel like I think it's always been like this as well. Like international tournaments are tough for assessing people at club level, but I guess someone we haven't talked about as well is from the Switzerland game, who walked away with the man of the match tucked under his arm, Granit Xhaka, who's there's no probably about it. He's just had his best ever season, hasn't he?
Yep.
And he seems to be carrying that into the tournament. So, fair play to him. He's really kind of not ending his career the right way, because he's not at the end, but the end of his peak. Like I do like it when that happens to players sometimes, when their early peak maybe doesn't go the way they want. And we're talking about Tony Kroos with this yesterday, right? And players like Benzema, who've been really good players, but perhaps things just don't quite open up for them until maybe the end. Maybe other players move out of the way. So yeah, there's not that many players that I guess Nico Williams actually for Spain, and I think that's just because I'd love to bring him to Arsenal. I feel like that's a profile like competing with Martinelli, where we wouldn't have to change much, and I do feel like that age profile and that kind of player really, really interesting. I doubt we could make that happen, but yeah, probably Nico Williams, and not least because Spain have like, it might be too early for them, but I think Yamal and Nico Williams has given them something they just haven't had for ages. Like we all know they've got the possession and all of that, but that explosiveness off the sides, which Spain haven't produced a lot of in the last 10 to 15 years. I think this might be a tournament too early for them, but I think in the next World Cup, they'll be really, really dangerous, actually.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we got to finish up on transfers for the hashtag clicks. So, Clive, Onana and Osimhen confirmed. How are they going to fit in next season?
Well, yeah, two little flowers there, not very physical, just tippy-tappy players. Yeah, well, Onana, again, I don't mind him. Honestly, I think he's only 22. I don't mind him. But as soon as I say that, someone's going to say, but Clive, what about our progressive passes? We can't get the ball forward, blah, blah, blah. So I tend not to say that out loud, even though I just said it. Right. So Onana, I do like him. I do think he provides a platform. But again, it's all about the number. If there's a PSR opportunity, then I'd look at it. But there's people at pains to say that we're not interested, which makes me think, Elliot, we could be. We haven't said that about anybody else. And so that's just me being stupid. And Osimhen, well, we've done our work on him, haven't we? So we've decided he's not, I decided he's not for us. Basically, I just struggle to think that we can have somebody come in of that level of profile and wages and then not play Kai Havertz. I don't think that's what we should be doing when we just basically fix somebody completely mentally that was shot and physically was struggling for position, etc. And he's now playing like a dream, and we're going to bring in Osimhen ahead of him. I'm not sure I would do that right now. So I don't see that, and also I'm not sure with technical ability outside the box. Inside the box, there's nothing to tell him, is there really? Inside the box, he's unbelievable. But I don't feel those two, mate, if I'm honest.
It's weird, right? So, Tim, I just want to ask you a question people are going to hate. Can I ask you a question? I want you to answer quickly, then I'll make my point and then give you a chance to expand.
I'm worried.
Okay.
If Arsenal sign no one this summer and bring back the exact squad with literally no one added, where do you think we finish next season?
I'd say second again if we have the same or similar injury luck. Yeah, I'd say second again. Obviously, it depends on what other teams do, but yeah, I'd say second, but maybe more distant than this year.
So I'd say first or second. I don't see any team that's overtaking us. We have youngish players coming into their prime. I think there'd be some organic improvement, right? Maybe Jesus is fit and he can give us more. Martinelli should improve. Odegaard and Saka on a trajectory of improvement. Declan Rice's second season in the system. Kai Havertz as our established 9 from the start instead of figuring out later, right? I mean, I think that there are a lot of ways, barring injury, where we could not only be the same, but improve. The idea that the only way
Timber coming back.
Timber coming back's a big one, like a new signing. We haven't had a good lands in a while, right? Maybe a Smith Rowe is in the mix. But my point wasn't that we shouldn't sign anyone. Let me just be clear. I'm going to get to my point. I know it was a provocative question. My point is there's this presumption that like you have to win the transfer window. If you don't win the transfer window, you lose. I mean, we once again were told we made the worst signing of the summer last summer after having made multiple worst signings of the summer and summers prior to that when we signed Kai Havertz for $60 million. It went down the drain to the tune of him being the best number 9 in the second half of the season. I think what I'm trying to say is if there's no one in the market that we really like and think is the right answer, spending $80 million on any old person who's available isn't the answer. And this is where I feel bad for Edu and Mikel. There's going to be so much pressure to go splash the cash. I don't think Osimhen is the answer. I don't think Onana is the answer. There are a lot of people that would take them just so we can say we did something in the market. I'd rather we do nothing and find the absolute right guy in January or next summer than do the wrong thing now and be stuck with it. If you spend 72 million pounds on Pepe, you know what happens? You spend 2 or 3 seasons trying to make Pepe work. That's what happens. Unless you're Manchester City, where you just stick Calvin Phillips on the bench, you stick Grealish on the bench, and no one ever mentions it. So I do think, Tim, my question to you is, how important is it that we do something, anything? This is a leading question, to be fair, versus making sure we only do things that improve us. Because I think what everyone's realizing when you're a 90-point team that's had 61 goal difference, finding players that actually improve you isn't as easy as it looks. And I don't want us to just go get anyone. I would like us to go get the right someone, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what we did last summer, right? All 3 of those kind of first team signings, they improved us. They did. Raya and Havertz, it maybe took a while. Rice definitely did. But even that, like I'd say those are 3 successful signings. Did that give us an extra 5 points? How many more points did we get this year than last year? Is it 5 or 6 or something?
Well, we were 89 versus 86. Was it 3 points? 89 versus 84?
Even that got us 3 points over the course of a season. Don't get me wrong. Like if we do that again and we get to 92 next season, City will probably get 93. But
it was 84 the season before.
84,
so
okay.
We were 5 points better. So if we get 5 points better again, then you're cooking. 94 points.
That's 3 first team players, and we had 1 taken away from us. So, but that's because they were good. It wasn't because we signed 3 players. It's because we improved. We signed 3 players that improved us. That is, I think we are past the stage now of floor raisers. It is ceiling raisers. Where that might be slightly different is some of the players we might lose might be in the second layer of the squad. So, Nketiah, Nelson, Smith Rowe, blah, blah, blah. And I think for me, what this summer is about is even if the first, like the 11 that we finish the season with, I'd like Thomas Partey to go and someone else to come in there. That feels like something that needs to happen to me. But even if like we have like that same 11 more or less that like finished last season, for me it's about Do we have better guys on the bench than Nketiah, Nelson, Smith Rowe, more trusted? Can we bring? I don't know. Maybe we do need floor raisers rather than ceiling. We probably need both. Don't get me wrong, but a summer where we raise the floor might be very, very useful indeed. So I don't think we're in any crisis situations, even if we didn't. And again, I'm not making the argument we shouldn't. Even if we didn't get another central midfielder, like Partey and Jorginho between them could do a season. I don't think they could do much more than that. And again, I'm not advocating for it, but it's not like we're not down to the bare bones there. We need to get younger and we need to get better there. But it's not like I don't see a position where it's like, oh my God, like if that guy's injured, the next guy off the rank is absolutely awful, So I think like smart additions, but at the same time, at the level we're at, like that's going to be expensive. It just is.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I actually regard central midfield as the place we must make a signing, because not that I don't want a forward. I've said I want a forward. I can write a scenario in my head, and it goes like this. Gabriel Jesus finally gets fully fit for the first time since that knee injury. And Gabriel Martinelli looks more like himself and has a season more like himself. And we have Kai Havertz at 9 from the start of the season. So now suddenly say Jesus can spell Saka on the right. He can spell Kai through the middle. He can spell Trossard and Martinelli through the left. Martinelli on form is on the left. Kai is on the right, center. Saka's on the right. Trossard is in the mix. That's a heck of a front line in that world I've just scripted. Again, not saying I don't want to forward. I'm just saying that works. In central midfield, I don't think we have the answer. I think it's Odegaard, Rice, and then I think we're missing the profile of the player we'd ideally like. That profile was supposed to be Kai, but Kai has become, I think, our better choice at 9. So I think we're back in the market. Maybe it's a Fabio Vieira at left 8. I'm not sure we're ready to go to that and get 100 points with that. So I think midfield has to be it. And that means Onana. And I just got to be honest with you. That, for me, it's not that Onana is not a player who could contribute to a team that wants to do what we want to do. I would like someone that's just a little more of that younger Jorginho profile or a Bruno Guimaraes profile. Whereas I think Onana is more of a backup Rice profile. So for me, that's not exactly the guy. Am I reading that wrong, Clive?
No, I had the same thoughts, but of course, you have a challenge, right? If someone says that you can get Onana for 30 million, I think, okay, he's a good player. How can we make it a little bit more technical? How can we build up? What is our build up solutions? So do we, rather than a 3-2, do we go to a 2-3? Bring Timber alongside and we build up in a slightly different way. Drop Odegaard deeper and play that way. There's always ways of playing. We have these ideas of roles in our mind. And to be honest, I look at Bruno Guimaraes and I think, hey, you look quite good. You probably do exactly what we need. I had a little look at Zubimendi the other day. He came on for a few minutes. I thought, that's interesting to see you for the first time in a live game. You look okay. And this Reinders guy, I thought, you look quite good. But the one that really stands out to me, Elliot, is that João Neves at Benfica. I thought, bloody hell, you're like, I have no, I shouldn't say I have no doubts because I need to see more of him in a proper game.
Well, the only doubt is the price at the age, right? I mean, it's the 100 million at 19 years old. That's the only doubt.
Yeah, and obviously no one wants to pay that, otherwise he'd have gone already, right? So it's about the number, and it's about does he want to be here? Because Zubimendi looks like he doesn't want to be outside of Spain. I think it's important for Arsenal that players that come really want to be here. And we mentioned Nico Williams earlier. Look at him and think, we could do with him. But, if you're him, Barcelona, you can go and play with Yamal for the next 10 years of his life. I'm thinking, why wouldn't you do that? So he's got to want to come. Also,
the wages he wants, just for people who aren't aware, I mean, it's going to be like £300,000 a week. He makes a fortune currently.
So I don't know how that's happened, by the way. I don't know how that's happened.
I think it's got to do with the situation at Athletic Club, because they don't do signing transfer fees or whatever. There's something related to that. And there's I can't remember. Phil did a great Football Vision pod about that club specifically and why they're able to do what they do. But he's on
players only, didn't they? And
fast players only. Yep. So he's on a huge wage, and it would be a wage busting. I mean, we're going to have to start paying £300,000 per week wages to some players soon enough. But like the question is, do we want him to be the first one?
Yeah, it's going to be such an interesting, for me, Elliot, we've made 2 seasons in a row. We had the Zinchenko Jesus summer where they transformed us tactically. Then we had the off the ball Kai Declan summer, transformed us again. And I'm so interested in the tactical direction that we take. Or which one do we layer on? Do we layer on physicality? Do we layer on energy? Do we layer on technical ability? What are we going to do? What are we going to improve? What attribute are we going to really emphasize? This is what we want to do. And I'm intrigued. And there's nothing creeping out of the club. There's nothing really.
No leaks.
No leaks. And I'm just watching it, completely fascinated to see what we end up doing. I cannot wait till I get the text message from you saying, we got to do a video. Can we just sign somebody? And then we can start to assess the direction that we're going. Can't wait for that.
Yeah. I'm okay being patient because I think this is the better you get, the harder it is to improve you. And so I don't want us to just do something. I want us to do something that can take us from 89 to 91 or 92 points. This is going to sound terrible, guys. Or even do something that just makes sure we stay at 89 points. It's hard to get to that level. We've only ever done it once before, and we were invincible when we did. To better the season we just had, we're going to have to potentially beat our record wins ever in the Premier League again in consecutive seasons. So some of it should be organic improvement. Some of it will need to be in the market, but I think we've got to be sure that it's right. I will say this. Watching Benjamin Sesko, guy can hit the ball, can't he? I mean, we knew that from the scouting video. He's got the ability to just explode the ball off his boot. And I do think Clive and I will be talking tomorrow about transfers, about a few other things, and the fixtures on Patreon. One of the things we're going to talk about on that Patreon pod is how to improve us, and the question of, should you target shots from outside of the box as an area for improvement? Can our shooting get better? Because I do think that, like, maybe other than Odegaard even, I don't know that we have the shooters. I think Rice can do it. He hasn't done it much. It's not what we want to do. And I'm not saying you should just take pot shots instead of building up better, but you see a Sesko and it's like, just someone who can explode the back of the net from 20 yards out with no backlift. That's a hell of a thing to have. And to be fair, that's what Foden gave City this season. And Foden's XG over performance with goals from outside of the box may have won them the title. Hell, on the final day, he gets the opening goal against West Ham. Where was it? About 19 yards out. Beautiful shot from outside the box. So something we can look at as improvement. We'll leave you there so that you can watch more Euros and you can listen to Phil on the Football Vision pod, do the Euro daily episodes, and you can listen to Clive and I on Patreon tomorrow. And we're going to keep loading you up with Arsenal stuff all summer long. We just thank you so much for sharing the summer with us. You are going to hear an announcement about the LA show. I mean, any day now. It's coming. It's on the Thursday before the United game. So for those people who want to go to Righty's show on Friday, you can still be free to do that. And who knows, maybe he'll even show up at ours. Just something to think about. But we'll see what happens. We'll have that announcement very soon. Okay, Tim's on Twitter at Stillminator. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name is Elliot Smith. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't say it. I meant to say it at the top of the pod, so I'm going to stop, and hopefully people will have stopped with me. I want to send condolences to friends, family, and the whole Arsenal community and the whole football community for the loss of Kevin Campbell. We will talk about that on another pod coming up. I'm trying to get someone lined up who can speak to that more articulately and brilliantly than I can. I know Mike from the Gooners pod did a 8,000-word tweet, but it is a brilliant, forget that it's a tweet. It is a brilliant article, essentially, on Kevin Campbell and his influence as an Arsenal player and in the football world and in the Arsenal community post-playing. I want to send my condolences to Sophie Nicolau. Their podcast that they did together touched a lot of people, and I know she was very close to Kevin. Just a lot of people hurting at his loss and gone so early, so young. Just very, very, very sad. So I know a lot of people in the Arsenal community and the football community are hurting over that, and we send our love and support to everyone going through it. So I want to thank you, Clive, for putting that in the chat, because I had it on my notes to say at top of the pod and I missed it. That's my bad, but we are going to be lining something up to be talking about him in the future anyway. So definitely a lot more to say about Kevin Campbell. Super Kev, you are missed. Rest in peace. Okay, we'll leave it there. My name's Elliot Smith. hang in there, everybody. have a good rest of your summer. Enjoy the Euros. We'll be back with the main pod on Thursday. We'll be back on Patreon tomorrow. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Transfer window.